GeNetix version 3 firmware has now been released. The v3 firmware adds to the hugely popular GeNetix nodes feature set, but with some more install focused type features. The GeNetix node firmware is released for all of the GeNetix nodes, GW2 in and out wall plates, GN2, GN5 and our various GN10 nodes, and of course things like the GN4 IP and our 10 scene store as well. So what have we added? Well, we've added specifically 3 major features, and there are some other little features as well which you can find in our change notes. I'm going to go through the 3 main features added in this video here. First off, what have I got here? I've got myself a 10 scene store and I've got a GN5 node. They're already updated to our v3 firmware. If you're unsure how to do so, you can download the firmware from the product pages on the Camsys website. So if you head over to a specific project, for example the GN5, and you go to the software downloads, you'll find the firmware file there, and it's updated via either MagicQ or QuickQ. We do include the latest firmware with our latest releases, so as soon as our 198 release is released, that will include our v3 firmware as well, so you won't need to go and get it separately once you're on that version. So updating the firmware needs to live inside the firmware folder. So if I go to File and I say Open Show Folder, open up my File Explorer. Of course, it'd be in the same place if you're on a console, just do it via the File Explorer. So set up File Manager will take you there as well. And you can see here I've got all my various show folders, etc. If I go to the folder above, I go to MagicQ, you'll see the firmware folder. So if you are taking the firmware from the website, just paste it into this folder here and away you go. As I said, if you are on our 198 software, once it's released, it's included with the software, so you don't need to go and do that step. When you go into MagicQ, go to Setup, go to Net Manager, go to View CamNet, and you'll see your connected devices. If I go to the devices view here, you can see the firmware they're on. These are already on v3, but if they weren't, you simply click on the device anywhere you like in that row here. You click Upgrade Device and you pick your firmware v3, and it will then start updating the device. It will tell you down here once the device has received the firmware. It will take a little while. It will show you the status and it will tell you restarted, programmed OK, and the number up here will update to tell you it's got v3 on it. So I've already got v3 on my devices here. What have we added? Well, the first thing, if I go to my GN5 and I go to Options, we've added another option for how you can trigger your 10 scenes. All of our GeNetix nodes can store 10 static lighting scenes on the node. They'll run completely independent without you even having to have a console there. Depending on the node you've got, our GN5 and 10s, you can connect things like our 10 scene wall plates directly to them. But if you're on something like our GW2 I&O nodes, they don't have the 10 scene port, so you have other ways of triggering, and we've added another option. So if I come down to 10 scene external here, you always had the option of using our 10 scene app. So we have a 10 scene app which is available for iOS or Android, which you can network to the node. So you can add a wireless router, run the app on your phone or tablet, and you can trigger the scenes using the app. You can also use MIDI notes. If you're on a GN5 or 10, they've got MIDI ports on them, and you can trigger the scenes. MIDI notes 0 to 9 will trigger scenes 1 to 10. We also support UDP or Ethernet Remote Protocol commands for triggering, so if you want to integrate with things like Crestron, you can do so as well. And what we've added in version 3 is the ability to trigger scenes via DMX input. So you can configure one of the ports on the node as an input port, and you can send in DMX channels 1 to 10, high and low will trigger the scenes on or off. So that's one of the new features added in v3 firmware. The other thing we've added installation focused in v3 firmware is what we're calling 10 scene priority. Now with the 10 scene scenes on here, in previous versions they'd always take priority above the console. Now right now I've got MagicQ running here, it's networked to my node as we can see it here, and if I go to my layout 1 you can see the PAR that's on the counter here is connected into the system. If you go to my MagicQ here, you can see if I change the color, like I say, change it to green, you can see my PAR has gone green. So I have a network cable coming out of my laptop into the node and DMX to the PAR here. Right now, the console, or MagicQ on PC as my console, is in control. The data is coming through here. If I go to Setup and I go to Net Manager, you can see in my options for my GN5, my 10 scene priority is set to below input. The priority of the scenes on the node is set to below the priority of the console, which is sending ArtNet or streaming ACN. And now if I go to scenes here, you can see on the GN5, I've activated the red scene. Well, clearly that's not outputting, the light is green. It's below the input of the incoming console now. So if I disconnect the console, you can see I disconnect the console from the node. There's a detect time of a few seconds, and you can see my light has now turned red because that scene is active on the node. So that could be me using a wall plate, and I can now be changing the scenes, etc. I plug back in my lighting console. Actually, what happens on the wall plate is the button flashes. You may be able to see that on the camera here to show that the scene is still active, but it's no longer outputting. My light's gone green because the console has priority. It's outputting from the console now. You can still use emergency triggers. So our GN5 and 10 nodes have a contact trigger on them, which if I go to the GN5 options, you can see here we have our trigger mode, which is disabled, and I could say that's active while closed, and I can set my trigger scene, and I could set that to say red. And if I had a contact trigger that went between them, that will take priority over anything. So that has the highest priority, and it's always fixed at that. So even if I have a console there, maybe I have an emergency button that I've got in my control room, when I want to press that, regardless of if it's running a scene from a wall plate on the node or it's running from the console, that scene would always take priority. So you've almost got 3 levels there. You've got scenes running off the wall plate or via DMX input, remote app, etc. triggered to the box. You've got console input, and then you can have the same scenes but triggered by what's called an emergency style trigger, contact close trigger, which would have a higher priority there. The other thing that we've added in our V3 firmware is the ability to lock the programming of 10 scenes. Now, if I jump over to the 10 scene store here, the 10 scene store, as the name suggests, is a simple store of 10 scenes. Now I'm going to reconfigure my setup here a little bit. If I take the DMX output, which is going to my PAR here, and from my 10 scene store here, I just have a simple DMX cable coming out, and I'm going to connect my PAR to the DMX output of my 10 scene store. And I've also got the network at the moment running into the 10 scene store here. So via network, you can see that if I go to devices here, we can see my 10 scene store. And if I change the color of the light to say blue, you can see that's in control. So I've rerouted the output from my 10 scene store on the Wago connectors is coming out from here. So the idea of a 10 scene store, as the name suggests, it's a simple store of 10 scenes, but also think of it like a 1-port node as well. So right now I'm networked from my console, and it doesn't have to be a Magic Cube console. Any console that talks ArtNet, streaming ACN, is connected into this node, into the 10 scene store. You can see the network port at the top there. It's plugged into the top, and it's doing ArtNet to DMX. The console is in control, and you can see I can change color via Magic Cube here, and it's changing color of my PAR here. Now it does have scenes on there. So if I unplug my console, I'm using the switch on the GN5 just to link the two together. You can see the PAR will turn red like so, and my scenes are now active. So it's a simple standalone controller here now. Now, in the previous versions of software, you had 2 ways of running this. The 10 scene store, you can see, also has a 5-pin DMX on the front, running to my cable here. What I've done here is I've got a Magic DMX giving me DMX output. Remember, I'm disconnected from a network right now, so my scenes are running from my wall panel here, triggering the scenes on the box. As soon as the console receives DMX input, like so, it'll drop out and go into the mode like you can see here, where the console now is in control. So you can see I'm via my Magic Cube here, I'm changing colors. It's done by Magic Cube, not triggering the scenes on the box here. So the idea being that with the 10 scene store, you don't have to have, we'd love you to use a Camtasia console there, but maybe this is installed in a corporate venue, doing the lighting around the room. You've got a visiting console coming in. You just say, okay, well, here's a DMX line, plug it in, here's the addresses, and you control the house lines. Currently, though, in the previous software, it would always be an open programming mode. So I've got DMX plugged into the system here, and if I press and hold a button like number 8 here for 5 seconds, it'll flash, and it's now stored that scene onto the device. If I unplug my DMX input and activate a scene, go scene 1, and then I go scene 8, you can see it's stored that data here. It would always allow you to override the data. Now, if I plug back in the network to the device here, and in Magic Cube, it will show me the devices back again here in a second. There we go. On the 10 scene store, the option is available on the GN5 and other nodes as well. Options here, we now have our 10 scene programming mode, which you can set to disabled. Of course, I could disconnect the device from the network, and when I plug back in my DMX input, like so, now when I do a press and hold, it will no longer store scenes. So it allows you as the venue to lock the data on your 10 scene store, but still have a visiting console come in and take control of the lighting rig that's coming from there. So 10 scene store, very powerful device. A simple store of 10 scenes that does allow either DMX input or streaming ACN or ArtNet input to control the lights and also be used for programming as well. So that's the 3 features added in our GeNetix v3 release. As I said, there are a few other little features, so do download this now. Do update your devices to GeNetix v3 firmware, and please let us know any feedback you've got on them.